Ho, 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 and happy holidays and a blessed new year around the corner. Welcome, everyone, as you slowly enter into the room to Eye on Privacy. My name is Jared Coseglia. I'm the founder and CEO of TRU Staffing Partners. We specialize in data privacy and protection staffing, as well as cybersecurity, e-discovery, and very much so now AI governance. And we're going to talk about all of that today with a heavy emphasis on privacy with our amazing host. For those of you who join us every month, and we do this every month to bring real-time data-driven metrics and analysis to the data privacy community about what's happening in their industry. Our co-host today is an amazing privacy professional, the incredible, energetic, charismatic, entrepreneurial, and industry tenured Shoshana Rosenberg, who is the Chief AI Governance and Privacy Officer for WSP USA, and is the co-founder of Women in AI Governance, who I know is going to have tremendous perspective to share with us today. Shoshana, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'll tell you that I got to spend time with Shoshana at PSR this year, which is where I really think we started falling in love professionally.
Absolutely.
And we had a great meeting, and she really inspired me. She's doing so much for the community in so many different ways. So we're not going to go into all of that today because we have lots to talk about. But if you don't know Shoshana and what she does for the community, you should do your homework and learn, because she can probably impact you professionally. All right, let's talk about what we talk about on this call: remote, in office, speed of hire, point. We're going to touch on most of these today. And one of the things that we've added here is people are always asking me, where's all this data coming from? So here's where all this data is coming from. It comes from a number of different sources, a lot of which are the conversations we're having with our customers and job seekers. As you can see, so far in 2024, we've gotten almost sort of north of 7,500 inbound applicants. That's just people coming to us who are qualified applicants. We get tens of thousands of others who are not. And you can see just how many people we've represented, which means we've actually sent them out on an interview. So this gives you a sense of where we're getting these insights. We're collecting data from LinkedIn. You want to download some of the raw data that we're getting this information from, you can do that with any of these QR codes. Okay, let's talk about the top 5 hottest jobs here at TRU. As you can see here, there's a lot of contract work, and this is going to be an ongoing theme in today's conversation and part of our reflection on the year behind. So if you are interested in any of these jobs or have jobs like these where you need talent, you can reach out to Michael or Michelle on my team. They're amazing, wonderful people. Michael handles UK and EMEA, and Michelle is on the US on our recruitment team. Okay. Here are the trends for December. Well, we had an election last month, Shoshana.
I heard about that.
It had a very decisive result. And I think a lot of people over the last month have been coming to us that are job seekers and customers asking questions about what's going to happen in the job market next year.
For your magic 8-ball, right?
Well, I've got one, so I'm going to share it with you today. I shook it up, and it came up and it said, deregulation leads to increased litigation. So for those of you who aren't historians of the job market, I can tell you that anytime we go into a Republican-led, particularly all when they are majority in all aspects of the federal government, litigation goes up. And it went up very specifically under Trump's last administration. And look, we anticipate deregulation to be a recurring theme. If you've been watching CNBC, Jeff Bezos is talking about it. All the CEOs from big tech are talking about deregulation and how it's going to impact their business. We'll talk about increased litigation, but let's talk about this last part, the decrease in compliance and the focus on business opportunity. Shoshana, what does that mean to you, and why does that make sense to you?
So I think really there you end up, things try to ground toward the middle. And when you end up in this situation where the organizations are able to run faster, right? Not just with the technology, but everything that clears out of the way allows organizations to run a bit like puppies with big paws, going as fast as they can, and basically means that you have a lot to tackle to try to keep up with them. So I think where you're not constrained, then we also, those of us in the compliance space and the governance space, have a lot more work to do. Just to keep pace and allow that. Someone from Adobe said that their legal department, they say, this is where yes starts, right, with the legal department, right? So to be able to
Yes.
enable that. Yeah.
I think it's really important for people to understand this, particularly in privacy, because a lot of leaders are still sort of leaning into the traditional motivators of regulators and fines, and we're going to be in breach of this law.
No
And
one's going to
I mean, I see you
listen.
shaking your head. I agree with you, right? It's just not going to work, right? You've got to approach the narrative for the next 4 years, at least the next 2, and think about how your program is going to impact the business in a positive way, as opposed to relying on the word risk isn't in here, but I think, as you've said, we're going to see businesses take a lot of risk to run faster, to compete.
And the way that the laws are built out currently, it leaves so much room for that, even those that are falling into place. And you sort of organizations who are not necessarily tech companies, but are now building on third-party tech, it's sort of akin to saying, I'm going to let my 18-year-old or 17-year-old have a glass of wine. I don't have one, but who's that old? A glass of wine on a Friday night and thinking the cops are going to bust down the door, right? You're not going to get a lot of momentum for that compliance mindset.
100%. And it's more than just the deregulation and the focus on business opportunity. It's also people are going to sue each other because there's nothing to protect them otherwise. And if we're running fast, particularly with AI technology, I mean, we're already seeing it, right? Musk has got a huge suit with OpenAI. There's more big litigation like that to come over IP, trademark infringement, patent. All of that is going to be a really hot area for litigation over the next few years, particularly as it relates to data. And that's where privacy attorneys in particular could refocus the risk conversation, right?
And harms, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. November, we saw an increase in FTE job postings, but we saw a decrease in offers accepted. So it seems that a lot of people are going to get more budget in 2025 for headcount. A lot of it will be contract, some of it will be full-time. A lot of that full-time headcount doesn't yet necessarily have approval and budget to use third-party agencies. So a lot of people are going at it on their own, which means a lot of these jobs are probably going to stay open for a lot longer than they might if people were like, we got to fill them fast, and we want agency help to do it. We find that there's about a 3 to 5 time difference in terms of days it takes to fill a position with or without an agency. So this is a trend we're going to see sort of leading into the first quarter, where people might window shop a little bit longer or gather resumes a little bit longer without a sense of urgency around the search until we get a triggering event that creates emergency.
So I have a question for you, because
Yeah.
I think you had talked to it. So this gap that's being filled, right, by litigation, but also by, and this is something I think that you've suggested here is leading to some of these jobs, is that businesses are also going to cover some of that through contracting and vendor vetting, right?
Yes.
So I think that's where you were framing the conversation that way earlier, and I think it's really key to see that everything is trying to close in to find ways to batten down the hatches where you can and still run fast. And you would need a lot more bodies to tend that, I think.
Yes, I think what we're seeing with a lot of privacy programs is the use of contractors is less to enable the newer, more progressive needs of the business to run faster, and more to backfill the lack of bandwidth that existing established, more leadership and deputy level professionals within the organization no longer have to do the sort of stuff that they've been doing over the last 3 to 5 years. So
Because they're over tackling yeah.
correct. And AI governance is part of that too, right? It's not just this preparation for deregulation. It's also this whole new potential program that they might be running sort of in dual silo or intermingled together as a discipline. Yeah. All right. One more trend I think we have, MT. Yes. So salary increases at point of hire remaining pretty nominal. So that it's been that way for almost 12 months. I think that we're coming to the end of that cycle. Employers should expect more jobs open, more competition. Job seekers are generally, who are active, receiving a minimum of 2 offers at the point of hire. So job seekers who are out there looking are getting more than one offer at the point of hire, generally speaking. And these are experienced talent between usually 2+ years experience. All right, let's dive into the data. Contract versus direct hire. We've got the whole year except for December, and you'll see just how dramatic in this next slide the month-over-month changes have been. I mean, this is the first year where every single month, with the exception of August and February, we had more contractors accepting positions than we did full-time employees. A lot of this is because the full-time jobs are just taking so long to fill. People are taking a very long time, particularly this summer. I'm curious what you're seeing out there in the marketplace in terms of how hiring managers are approaching augmenting their program. And if you're sort of seeing, what over the last couple of months has been a pretty dramatic shift to hiring more contract resources than full-time.
So I have, this just from an observation within the larger community, I have seen a lot of shift as if companies, instead of retaining, are actually shifting leadership from privacy. I think you've seen a lot of people, and I don't know necessarily that even AI governance has anything to do with it, but throughout the year, within our community, we've certainly seen people getting jobs who were at the mid-range instead of the senior. So I can't tell if that's just budget constraints or if it's a sort of a shift in approach, maybe away from risk, right, tolerance. And so, but I do see that hiring managers are expecting more because the data governance, especially with AI, the data governance component here is so fundamental, and we don't talk about it because it's not sexy, but everyone who made their career on privacy understood it, and has had to implement it and understand it. And now I think with AI, it has a different pull. And I think that you're going to see, at least certainly in the cohort of people that I work with and talk to about these sort of things in the industry, you definitely see that demand for a bigger picture awareness of data and the ability to help shepherd that, if not oversee it.
It's an interesting shift in sort of human work motivators. And I think it was during our prep call that you said to me, so many people got into, I'm paraphrasing now, but so many people got into privacy because they felt ethically that they wanted to stand up for these human rights. And I don't think that's what's driving people to AI on the broader level. I think it's what's driving them as opportunity, business opportunity, make an impact. I mean, I can literally send you 10 emails I got from people that develop AI technology that want to come help my business that emailed me today, soliciting themselves, right?
Well, but wait, but when you talk, and the difference here being AI versus AI governance, and I will say this,
Yes.
for those people who, privacy is a finite realm of law. So those people who want to stay in a corner and always be right, if you want to be an attorney, because attorneys are just generally not always right. If you always want to be right, you can stay in privacy. But for those who are more dynamic and really have been chomping at the bit to continue that notion of protecting from harms and expand using their business acumen, this is a real opportunity, right? But some may pull away because, again, it is a large scope of work.
Correct. But I think what I would advise everyone to think about very carefully over the next few years is, as much as we may have been driven to this industry to have a human impact on the rights of people, I don't know that the winds of budget are necessarily blowing in that direction right now. And if you're a privacy professional and that is your mantra, and you're finding yourself working an 80-hour-a-week schedule and not getting any support or budget, the two might be related, right?
So I don't want to derail because I know there's a million slides, but I do want to say, where you're talking about in a world where transparency and accountability are the only way for businesses to survive past the inception point, I think ethics factors in there. But generally speaking, ethics has not sat right over here. So that's an interesting distinction you make.
Well, let me make an even more nuanced distinction. I think many privacy lawyers struggle with being the no lawyer, and the no being the ethical line that they hold. And there's nobility to it, but I don't know if there's a lot of budget going to be following behind that nobility. Unless
I think we have the laws to back us up at this point, but go ahead.
Look, it's not about that. It's about taking further, more progressive steps that help the business or drive revenue or bring in customers, not taking more progressive steps that help human rights. because if we don't, we're going to get slammed by a regulator, or we're going to find ourselves in hot water with, a government agency, or we're going to have to move out of Europe. That's not, it's the redirection of the
Yep.
conversation. And I've seen that be a struggle for people. I watch them struggle. CPOs articulate, well, how are you reporting up to your board? Okay, you don't get to report up to a board. Well, who are you reporting to, and how are you reporting up your value? And I still think a lot of leaders are struggling with matrixizing their reporting structure. And one of the things you and I talked about, and I know it came up at Counsel when I spoke a couple weeks ago, is this idea that most people are trained to present risk mitigation matrices. And again, when I ask the question to people, I often get people that are like, that's a good idea, which surprises me. What about a missed opportunity matrix?
Yeah. And I do think AI, certainly businesses are starting to look at things that way with regard to AI, with a little pie in the sky. I think that's an interesting distinction.
But the AI governance isn't, to me, just to go back to your earlier point, I know we're getting off topic and we'll get back on. The AI governance piece isn't separate from the AI piece in my mind as a CEO, because if the data isn't governed well, then it doesn't matter what kind of technology I build to, the data has to be governed well in order to use it, right?
Yes, and I think with the missed opportunity thing, I think there's also the notion, remember privacy by design and default, it's in there, right? It's in the GDPR,
Yes.
but privacy by design did not turn into that. It turned into hey, this could be a differentiator for these two businesses, and everyone else falls silent, right? And so you are seeing some of that, but mostly where the opportunity is so big, and we've seen first movers in our own tech circle who have acknowledged we just launched and didn't really have a product and wanted to sort of just make first movers. So there is some of that happening too with AI, where the governance has always been playing catch up. And even these laws, the EU AI Act it's starting to stop the bleeding, right? Once the tech got ahead of us.
Well, we'll see. I mean, for me, the EU AI Act hasn't impacted the job market in the slightest yet. Not yet. Not compared to GDPR, where we saw
Well,
essentially
no, of course. Yeah.
birth of an industry. Do you know what I mean? Or the acceleration of an industry from toddler to adolescence, right?
Right. The really easy thing to walk into the boardroom with that fine structure. Yeah.
Right. All right, let's look at year over year. You can see here just how different things have been, and how things really, since the rebound from the pandemic, have gone from let's all hire full-time people as we lose all our staff and we go through 21, 22, which are the great resignation years, right? That's why there's so much full-time hiring, because people are changing jobs. We're figuring out work from home. It's a whole new world. I believe those 2 years were more redefining to the entire world and the way it works than any other event since the Industrial Revolution.
Absolutely.
So here we
We're
are
all impacted
recalibrating now,
daily.
right? So here we are recalibrating. 40% of our contractors who started assignments since January of 2023 have been offered full-time jobs, and 90% of them accepted. Those numbers are astronomical. Usually it's like 12 to 18% get converted and like 50% accept. This just shows you that contract to hire has been a meaningful way in which hiring managers are getting full-time headcount, right? We're no longer saying, hey, help me fill this job, I need the budget. We're saying, hey, let's hire Shoshana. Look at her work product. She's amazing. We want to keep her.
Well, and as a former employment law attorney, right? Like it's a great way to get to see how that dynamic works and how useful and incredible that person can be.
Yeah. And often both employer and employee come to us and say, okay, we want to make the flip. And that's around 234 days. Now that number is up from 2022, where it was at 151, but down from September of this year from 245. So what that tells us is we sort of peaked, and this number is ticking down, meaning people are becoming more aware that there's going to be more options for people in terms of job opportunity moving forward. So they're accelerating. Exactly. They don't want to lose them. So they're accelerating that. On the next slide, you'll see a slightly different statistic, which is length of assignment. Forget about conversion, just how long the assignment is. You see the assignments were a lot shorter in 22 and 23, and they got a lot longer in 24 because people just didn't get the full-time headcount, so they kept those contractors going.
Do you calculate this against the initial like anticipated assignment or just the full? Do you see a lot of shift there, I think is what I'm asking.
Yes. So I will tell you that we're starting to see that now. And that shift is about caliber and cost, meaning a lot of customers came to us. This is our budget. This is what we're looking for. They've interviewed that pool of candidates and they've said, we need to go up. It's not, we're not going to get what we're looking for at that price point. We need to level up what we can spend because we need to level up the caliber. And here's the nuanced difference. And then interviewing a next round of candidates and going, yep, these are the people we want. Now I need to go advocate for the budget in order to, go make a hire, or let me advocate for the budget and then we'll interview those people and we'll make a hire. Either way, we're seeing people need to step up the caliber and the cost. Some people are more successful than others in getting it, right? I will say that most people are not as readily willing to lower their caliber expectations as they are to go fight for more money.
I think that's appropriate, especially at this moment in time.
65% of TRU customers are using both direct hire and contractor. 92% of our contractors are finishing assignment, converting, or still contracting. Only 3% leave a contract and take a different job full-time somewhere else. And I bring up that statistic because customers are shocked when I share this with them. They just assume that the minute a contractor gets a full-time offer somewhere else, that they're out the door. And that just hasn't proven to be true. Most of these privacy contractors are brought on to fulfill a specific goal. And so they're very mission-driven people, generally speaking. They don't want to leave until they've fulfilled that goal. And so we just don't find them shopping around as
well, and it might speak
it's
to
like
culture,
cyber people, to be honest.
but it might speak to culture fit, right? The
Yes.
people who are trying to stay and get pulled on. So that's an interesting,
Correct.
That's good news in terms of placement alignment too.
Correct. Okay. Here are the top 10 reasons that contractors are being used by hiring managers. You can see that the no full-time headcount is the #1 reason. And #2 is temp to hire, right? This is just useful for seeing kind of what motivates hiring managers. We can go to the next one, MT. This is the one I really wanted to talk to everybody about because it's really where AI Gov comes into the equation. We're starting to see this now meaningfully impact programs, Shoshana. And I'm curious what you think of this notion that essentially privacy leaders who were tasked with AI governance leadership have now had about 2 years under their belt, right? Give or take. And probably not much more than that. That's kind of when the revolution occurred, Q4 of 22. So now that they've had that, maybe they've started to indoctrinate or transfer responsibilities down to their deputies. Maybe those deputies are now having too many responsibilities, not enough bandwidth. They're delegating responsibilities, whether they be privacy or AI governance, probably more so privacy, down to their subordinates. And it has this ripple effect. And we're seeing this impact large and small programs alike, where hiring managers are coming to us and saying, okay, I need somebody to do my rote privacy tasks because my privacy program hasn't been able to grow in headcount, but we've grown tremendously in terms of responsibility, particularly with AI gov responsibilities, and we just don't have bandwidth anymore. So do you got anyone who knows how to handle ROPA? Do you have somebody that can handle DSAR? Do you have somebody that can handle DPIs, DPIAs? These sort of very, let's call them bread and butter privacy responsibilities, where there is a vast ecosystem of contractors available who can come in, have an impact, and get out of the way. And we're seeing this now become a really meaningful trend as to why hiring managers are augmenting with privacy contractors.
I think no, we'll see. So absolutely. And I think, well, we could certainly derail onto the AI governance part and how that's an entire plate full of well beyond the spectrum of just aligning with laws and well beyond compliance program that completely removes someone from the ability to fully handle that unless they're working with 7 arms behind their head, which I've been told I can do. So, but it's almost impossible. But I do think that it's interesting. We're seeing the tech try to bridge the gap, right? To say like, okay, well, but that is really about centralizing your intelligence. You still, as you point out, you still need a human, right? To go through this, to respond, to deal with things. And I guess the question is, who are the contractors that you're seeing taking on this work, right? What level of experience is the best fit for that, where they're not frustrated by wanting to go further? Do you have it like a range?
Well, most of the jobs are in the middle, right? So they're not entry-level jobs. Nobody's looking for interns, generally speaking. There are exceptions to that rule. And most people aren't looking for executives either. They've got those executives. CPO job postings were less than 3% of what privacy job postings were online of, I think, less than 15,000 jobs in the first 3 quarters. We'll show you that data in a second. So for me, it's more about there isn't really a pool of AI gov contractors. So that knowledge and that responsibility sort of has to be institutionalized. But there is a robust pool of people in the middle who do things like this, who either victims of layoff, who don't want to go into an office, so they've chosen the contract lifestyle as a way to stay fully remote. That's a huge portion of the marketplace. There's also a lot of people that are somewhere between what I would call manager and CPO. They're like director level that don't want to work at consulting firms, but they do like to go in and have strategic consultative impacts and then get out of the way. And then to your point, as we were talking about beforehand, I think there's a whole corpus of people that just want to go and give their knowledge to a program and then get out, right? You asked me the question before.
They don't want to admin, yeah.
Right, they don't want to admin. They're builders, they're disruptors, they're not maintainers. And a lot of programs are now in maintenance mode, particularly ones that don't have AI Gov as part of their responsibility and are holistically compliance oriented in terms of the measure of their success.
So, but for organizations, I think that's a really interesting and cool way to look at it. If we think about it as what we as organizations can benefit from with regard to contractors, because you essentially are getting, if they've been a contractor for a while, you're getting the benefit of a consultant at the level, right? So the institutional knowledge they have is so much more varied, and the prism they're seeing through is a huge boon. In terms of, oh, well, you know, how did they do it at that other place? And even if you don't tell them exactly, right, they leverage that. So that's an incredible opportunity for organizations too.
And privacy hiring managers, particularly ones that have been doing this for decades, are sort of not aware that this is available, but you have to think about this: 14% unemployment through half of 2020. And a lot of those people were privacy people. A lot of them were seasoned privacy people. Those people have been contracting for the last 4 years. People that wanted to break into privacy couldn't get jobs in privacy in 2020 because of COVID. So they've been contracting now for 4 years. So yeah, they've seen a lot, they've done a lot, and our contractors cost, you know, a third to a tenth of what somebody from a Big Four would cost you, and often are the exact same people, quite frankly. All right, we've only got a few minutes left. We'll kind of quickly go through this guidance. I want to just go to the MT, click us through a little bit. I know we've only got a few more minutes here. I just want to go through quickly. Yeah, we'll talk about some of this data. You can see here that this is how many jobs there were in the first 3 quarters of 2022 versus 2023 and 2024. There've just been a lot less jobs posted, right? But also keep in mind, as I said at the beginning of this call, 80% of our contract jobs, our customers aren't posting, right? There is no job description. It's, hey, TRU, we need this. Can you help? So a lot of opportunity is not visible online. We could skip through all this, MT. We only got 2 more minutes left. So actually, I'm going to turn to the Q&A in case there are any questions. And then we're going to do final predictions or year in review. Shoshana, I'll let you pick which question you want to answer. We've got one question here from Virginia. What roles are hot for contracting? What is the percentage in entry, mid, or senior? I think I answered the latter part. I'll be more specific with the former part. And Shoshana, I'm curious to hear what you think and what you're seeing as well. You know, look, technology implementation customization, particularly with OneTrust, we get a lot of requests for that. Attorneys with specific domain expertise, particularly ad tech, martech, are going to be in high demand. Think about companies that are going to be more opportunity versus compliance driven, and ad tech, martech expertise is going to be something people are looking to leverage, whether it's attorney or operational, over the next few years. We're also seeing generally people that move into other areas. So, hey, we're moving into Latin America. We need an attorney that can help us understand that ecosystem from a regulatory perspective, transfer that knowledge, exit the program, PIAs, DSAR, contract, lifecycle management, and policy updating. All are hot topics. Shoshana, what do you see out there? What are people asking for from contractors?
So I'm not as familiar with what they're asking for contractors, but I am familiar with what they're poking around for, right? And it's very heavy on the data governance. It's also a leveled up, and we've talked about this, a leveled up procurement or vendor management group, right? That's savvy to the specific risks that AI brings to the table. And that actually can compound privacy considerations. So a lot of those people trying to fill in the gaps in their talent pools. And then honestly, on the this is a bit different, but in terms of people who truly understand, right, who are privacy or compliance, who truly understand what continuous monitoring is and how to evaluate that program and how to right size the staffing of that. It wouldn't necessarily sit with you, but you certainly have to actually understand what that means, because it sounds nice and like it belongs somewhere else, but there's oversight needed. So people, the whole industry is crawling for people who have a real tether there.
It's interesting because, people in the e-discovery world have been doing continuous active learning on litigation matters and building LLM specifically for that use case for a
Setting thresholds, yeah.
long time, and for a while, I thought I was going to be the Pied Piper that helped e-discovery people move into privacy as they were looking for an exit. But it's been difficult to get people to sort of see the connectivity that
Just
e-discovery.
need a rebrand.
You need a rebrand. You need a rebrand. All right, Shoshana, final thoughts. Predictions for 2025 or most important trend of 2024. I'll let you pick or do both.
I don't feel qualified to do certainly the trend. Everybody can speculate, so I'll go forward. You have much more insight to the trend probably. Though I certainly saw some trends in how people approached AI governance frameworks. But I do think that in 2025, we're going to see different documentation at the contract level between B2B customers in particular, those who are building with or building upon third-party AI, and a requirement that you have language that says don't use my data, right? So I really think it's a contracting thing. But in terms of jobs, which is more salient here, I think, and I've seen your data has led me to understand where this may be going in terms of hiring. But hopefully you're going to get engineers on your privacy team. You're going to get DevOps people who are at least tied in somehow, even if it's a dotted line, so that there's one tether into every component of what's being touched, whether it's vendor management or other. So I'm hoping there will be an addition of the technical into so much of what companies are now starting to make themselves tech companies without even realizing it.
I hope that there is a high enough demand that that can be the singular responsibility of an individual hired in a program. I think the more realistic outcome in the first part of the year will be
Tech
that.
savvy privacy.
Well, if that role, that will be a piece of that role, but that person who's got engineering skill sets is going to have to do other stuff
Yeah.
because there's not enough of that at most companies right now to demand paying $150,000 to $200,000 a year for just an engineer. I mean, the engineer privacy game has changed a lot in the last few years.
But some companies that are not tech companies that are building things to put forward, they're not even hiring engineers and DevOps people to think that
Correct.
they don't get it, that they need them on staff on the other side of what they're creating.
So if you're a DevOps person who has great customer service skills or knows how to go in and customize third-party technology, like try to sell yourself as somebody that's more than a one-trick pony. Even if that's not who you necessarily want to be, you might find more opportunity out there. That's all.
So what are you predicting? That's what we're
Look,
here to
I'm going to
know. We're here
predict
to
a
learn from you.
huge surge in contract hiring in privacy in the first 2 quarters of next year. I have been, whether I want to admit it or not, wildly surprised at how many hiring managers in privacy are still struggling to get budget for full-time headcount. What they'll get is contract budget to fulfill projects. So have clearly identified projects, get them executed. The contractors are out there, and I think you're going to see a ton of people taking contract roles in the first 2 quarters of next year.
I think that's really exciting, actually.
Yeah. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Anybody that missed compensation benchmarks, you can reach out to me directly right here. I know some of you wanted to see that. I see that in the question channel. You can reach out to me directly. You can link with me on LinkedIn. Anybody that reaches out to me will get a response from me, not a robot. And you can also connect with Shoshana on LinkedIn. We're so thankful to have you on our show.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to see you.
You were a wonderful guest. Thank you for your brilliance and your time. And join us, everyone, in 2025, every month, right here for Eye on Privacy. Have a great new year. Happy New Year, everyone.
You too. Happy New Year. Thank you.